It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as we look at why CM Punk didn't join AEW sooner. We have huge news on the futures of Brock Lesnar and Becky Lynch following their SummerSlam returns. And Bray Wyatt is set to sign for All Elite Wrestling. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first... Over the past weekend, if you tried to purchase the new CM Punk AEW t-shirt, you would have found that the Pro Wrestling Tees powered shop AEW was extremely difficult to access. This was due to an overload of traffic that caused the site to crash on multiple occasions. Despite this, those that did manage to get in did so in huge numbers, as CM Punk's new t-shirt sold the most within its first 24 hours of being on the site than any other item in site history. The previous record was held by Brody Lee, with Sting coming in at second. Sting originally set the record in December upon his debut at Winter is Coming, with Brody's tribute shirt after his death later smashing that record, with all profits from that going to his family. Punk's appearance at AEW Rampage The First Dance is no doubt the biggest moment in AEW, if not modern wrestling history, and the demand for his latest merchandise shows his popularity amongst the wrestling fans. I personally had to wait a couple of days to get mine due to not being able to get in, but let me know, did you manage to pick up the new CM Punk t-shirt? Let me know in the comments down below. And speaking of CM Punk, divisive podcaster and former wrestling promoter and manager Jim Cornette had praise for AEW and their handling of CM Punk's debut, which is very much a rarity. Since the inception of AEW, Cornette has been vocal of his criticism of the product, and to find praise from Jim in regards to All Elite Wrestling is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But this week on the Jim Cornette Experience, he had nothing but praise for the debut of CM Punk, calling it perfect. He said, "It wasn't the way I would have done it. It was a lot better. It was perfect. I said it wasn't the way I would have done it, and I said it was better, and here's why." Jim went on to mention that if Punk showed up in a surprising or shocking way, it would have simply blended in with the other AEW surprises as of late, and he felt that keeping it simple was the best approach, and he added, "I realised two things. Number one, Punk knows his hometown better and realises how long he's been gone. They didn't need to do anything else. Secondly, also, to be honest, I would have been running a normal television program up until now." In retrospect and reflection, they've had so many surprises and shocks, and some that weren't shocks and some that weren't surprises, and some that were flat and some that got over. That wouldn't have been unusual, that would have been business as usual. This is the first time that they've had a big star show up, come out, get an ovation, do his promo, not be attacked, not be mixed with miscellaneous other people. You know what I'm saying. So in this case, the simplest thing they could have done was the perfect thing. Play that music and let him come out in front of his hometown. Punk's debut was no doubt the best it could have been, letting him soak up the atmosphere and letting the segment be driven by pure emotion. Whilst having him do a run-in or attacking somebody would have gotten a pop, it wouldn't have had anywhere near the same effect. This rare praise from Cornette shows how effective it truly was. And in other news, hell has frozen over and pigs have been spotted flying in the Louisville area. Next up, New Japan star Kenta has once again called out CM Punk in his relentless quest to wrestle the voice of the voiceless. Kenta, the inventor of the GTS, has made several public statements expressing his desire for a match, taking to Twitter after CM Punk's debut in AEW to say, "It's official, give me CM Punk." This GTS vs GTS dream match is a very exciting prospect, although Punk recently mentioned in the AEW Rampage First Dance media scrum that he is not thinking of stepping through the forbidden door just yet, and is fully focused on AEW. However, perhaps this won't stop Kenta from kicking the door down and going the other way. I think at this point the match will eventually happen, and it seems like it's just a matter of time. And speaking of that previously mentioned media scrum, AEW President Tony Khan revealed why Punk's debut didn't happen sooner in AEW. The two parties have been in on and off talks since 2018 before the company was incepted, with the latest talks going back 18 months. They revealed that they didn't want the debut to happen in front of limited or empty crowds, instead it was well worth the wait, and Tony revealed, "We stayed in touch and I really liked talking to him. He had clearly watched some Dynamites and we had some conversations about them. I really wanted you, CM Punk, to come back and wrestle so badly, desperately. And didn't we all, Tony?" Punk and Khan went on to say that the debut couldn't have happened during the pandemic and had to happen in front of fans, and that everything seemed to align perfectly, with Tony adding, "Again, that was nothing anybody could have ever planned for, but it definitely gave myself and Punk a lot of time to talk because there was no rush to do anything because the fans were not coming back anytime soon. I think that it was worth the wait. It was definitely worth the wait." Khan also noted that it was Punk's idea to hold the debut inside the United Center, calling it a happy accident that the building was available on a Friday night so soon. It was also revealed that it was Tony Khan who wanted Darby Allin to be his first opponent. And it looks like things in AEW are going to continue to be even more exciting, with several debuts still set to happen, including Bryan Danielson and someone else that we're going to be discussing in today's final story. But first, let's get to some WWE news. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you drop a like on the video as it helps me out a lot, and make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head, hopefully, towards 100,000 subscribers. But now, let's press play on the video. On Saturday, we saw the second and third best returns of the weekend at SummerSlam, as on Saturday night, both Brock Lesnar and Becky Lynch returned to WWE television. We now have an update regarding the future of both stars. First, Becky appeared as Bianca Belair's surprise opponent for her SmackDown Women's title after Sasha Banks was pulled from the show, with Becky going on to win the belt in just seconds. According to Mike Johnson over at PW Insider, one of the most over babyfaces in WWE is set to be positioned as a heel on the blue brand going forward and will feud with Bianca Belair. Becky is now considered a heel internally within WWE, and that will be played out on screen going forward. In regards to Brock Lesnar, he returned at the end of the pay-per-view to confront still WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns, as his former advocate Paul Heyman, who is now Reigns' special counsel, looked on in shock. Brock and Roman are set to clash at either Crown Jewel in October in Saudi Arabia or at the Survivor Series in November for the Universal Championship. According to Dave Meltzer, the plans for the match between the Beast and the Tribal Chief have been brought forward significantly. The match was originally penned in for WrestleMania 39 in 2023. The Rock is still in line to be Roman's opponent at WrestleMania 38 next year, which means Reigns will likely get past Brock in order to set up the huge family-themed title match. The Rock is currently set to return at the Survivor Series, one of the potential dates for Brock versus Roman. On Saturday, July 31st, WWE shocked the wrestling world when they released Bray Wyatt from his contract. The former Fiend is considered as one of the most naturally gifted performers in the business with tons of creativity. We now have an update on the future of the Eater of Worlds, as it is now expected that he will be joining All Elite Wrestling once his 90-day non-compete clause expires. According to Dave Meltzer, who spoke on Wrestling Observer Radio, we'll be seeing multiple wrestlers heading to AEW following this weekend's amazing CM Punk debut, and one of the wrestlers is expected to be Wyatt. The situation was described as similar to that of Malachi Black, who at the time, despite not having signed a contract, was highly expected by those within the company to do so. Of course, eventually he put pen to paper, showing up on AEW Dynamite Road Rager. This follows reports that Bryan Danielson, Ruby Soho, and Ric Flair are also all AEW bound. It's worth noting that Wyatt will officially be able to sign elsewhere from Friday 29th of October. This is 1 week before the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view on November 6th. With his non-compete expiring on a Friday, it also opens up the possibility of a debut on Rampage that night, or perhaps the next week on the Go Home Dynamite and Rampage before Full Gear. He also becomes a free agent 2 days before Halloween, so perhaps AEW will hold some kind of Halloween Havoc style event to tease his debut. Either way, this is a great addition to AEW if the report is to be believed, and I can't wait to see what he can do without WWE taking his ideas and making them terrible. The next few months of AEW TV are certainly going to be very, very interesting. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where I discuss the secret wrestling returns of CM Punk during his so-called retirement.